I have four garden trends from 2024 that need to stay in 2024. If some of these you do not agree with, Geek Crew, feel free to comment down below why, because I very much so could be wrong in regards to what I'm determining as not the greatest use of a gardener's time, and or confusing to someone who's not incredibly experienced and can't kind of read the room, if you will, in regards to what their garden is doing. Number one is Olas. Hear me out. Olas are great if you're willing to invest the time and the money into them. The reason why Olas made the list for a trend that can stay in 2024 is solely because people aren't putting enough Olas in. They aren't putting them at the correct depth, or they're in a climate where the Olas crack pretty darn easily, and a cracked Ola is a whack Ola. Crack is whack, kids. Because of that, you may choose to steer away from them. Now, let's talk about why Olas need to be invested in the sense that we need several of them or enough of them to make things work. Number one is actually the movement of water horizontally. Well, water moves via gravity first, downward. Once it's moved downwards, if it hits like a change in texture or density or compaction, what will happen is it will move horizontally. So when we have an Ola in place, we do get some capillary action around the Ola. So the space below the Ola is going to be the wettest, and the spaces out from the Ola will be wet, but only to a certain degree, meaning you need the two circles of moisture to overlap, and you need the Olas close enough together to make that happen. Here's the catch. It highly depends on the type of soil you have. So if you have a fluffy, lightweight, sandier type soil. I just want to make something super clear here in this section of the video. I am referencing mineral soil when I'm talking about capillary action and, just soil hydrology in general. I am not referencing soilless mediums. So this can include peat, potting soil, coconut coir, compost, leaf molds, anything that is organic in nature and you are using to grow in. Olas and just bottom watering, hydrology in and of itself is very, very different. It completely does, it's different. So Olas in a raised bed filled with potting soil or in a large pot of potting soil, wonderful product, works very, very well because of the fact that it's so much different. I use them actually with my fiddly fig, the rubber tree plant that you see behind me in that video. It's behind me there. That's why I'm pointing there. Anyways, that I use those. There's Olas in there, and that's how they actually do so well. So sandy loam, your horizontal movement of water is much less. Your gravitational movement of water is much higher, meaning you need more Olas put closer together to get that overlap that you're seeking, so your plant roots aren't reaching for a space that the water is contained in. Because plant roots, they cannot uptake any nutrients unless water is present. It's very important water is present. Anywhere where water isn't present or never becomes present is a dead zone. Plants, you need to be able to overlap them, and you need more in a fluffier, sandier, higher macro porosity type soil. Now on the other side, we have clay. And clay, the Ola product, will not allow to go as deep. It'll go quite deep because gravity, again, is number one force. So there's going to be like a certain depth that it goes to naturally, but the bigger the Oya or the water reserve is, if it's a terracotta pot, for example, even, the bigger kind of blotch it makes. I have a video on how to test your soil structure, or your soil texture here, and that may help you determine if you need more or less Olas, depending on the soil that you're dealing with. Like I said, if you're gonna invest money, I would prefer you go with a drip irrigation over an Ola, because there's just a lot of trial and error that needs to take place there, and in my opinion, it's much more expensive to go that route than just like a quick drip irrigation kit, which you can make very, very easily. Because the Geek Crew is going to find this genuinely interesting, this video I found, and it goes through, obviously it's not Oya, it's talking about hydrology in soil. Now again, different situation, however, you can see the textures, you can see how drastically different
water moves through these textures. So that sandy loam, one thing you'll notice is what we call the infiltration rate is much higher than that of the clay. Now, the downfall of this is that it also runs out of water much quicker than the clay soil. So under non-irrigated instances, or going on vacation type thing, that soil is more likely to cause, blossom and rot, wilting, all that sort of stuff, because of its inability to capture and hold. It's very good at spreading it out very fast, particularly when it comes from the top. It's very good at penetrating it deeply. You know what they say, soil science is dirty. Puns intended. When it comes, again, from the top in an Oya, I think that's mostly what you would see in that case. The clay, it takes more water, but that water sticks around for a much longer period of time. So sandy loams don't do well unless they're irrigated, just in general.
Number 2 trend that I really hope stays in 2024 is maximalism. The technical name for it is maximalism. I don't know, everyone calls it different. High density planting, I don't give a shiitake mushroom where it goes density. The idea here, and what I've seen people doing, I do it all the time, I really shouldn't, but I do, is really high density planting. So it's a combination of what I believe people think is companion planting. So planting plants together that benefit each other within close range. Or just serious, honest to goodness, just square foot gardening, mashing as much together as possible and then letting things take over. I will say that it's pretty. It's very pretty, very full of fat, but it is a known fact that it reduces yields. So, unfortunately, the reason why it reduces yields is down to a number of factors, some of which I do think in a garden setting in particular are very easily controlled. So number 1 is just competition. Competition, particularly in the root zones. So they are competing for water, they are competing for nutrients, macro, micro, you name it. And this competition, in my opinion, can be mitigated with more watering, more frequent watering, and obviously more fertilization when necessary. So I think that one is kind of it's manageable, particularly in a small garden. Again, production level, no, that's not doable, but small scale, yes. Where I do think gardeners, it makes it difficult for us to, where I think it's difficult for us to actually get a head start and get out of the rat race of competition or competing for resources, for light. Simple as that. So if you have light and the light has to penetrate the canopy and you have a whole bunch of leaves and everyone's competing, what we tend to see is leggier plants trying to get higher above the canopy to get more light. And this can result in plants that are much easier to snap in wind, for example. It can result in, cabbage that's not really a head, it's like a big long stem type thing. So any sort of competition for light. Now, if you have a very sunny location that you normally add shade cloth to, maybe a good idea, because that extra little bit of protection from surrounding plants can benefit the plant. If you have a shady location or you're limited in sun, it's not in your best interest to go this route. Now, to drive home how important spacing is for a plant, this is a concept that people look at quite in depth in regards to studies, research, peer reviews, because the goal for a farmer, for production level, is volume and marketable fruit. So any way that they can increase that, you have to maximize what you can get from every square meter, foot of your land. And so the way to maximize that is via research on what the proper spacing is. So we have done extensive research, particularly on cash crops, in regards to what that spacing looks like. That is the reason why when you see a tractor going down field, they don't just leave that spacing on the air seeder at the same one. Corn is the same as canola. No, what they do is they actually go in and they have to change the plates, and the plates change the amount of seed. There's also dial versions, extensions for probably nothing that you guys care about. Regardless, the spacing is important depending on the crop you're going for, and the crop spacing determined is based on research for the highest level of marketable fruits and vegetables. If the package says to put X spacing, you should probably put it to X spacing if you want to get the greatest results. I do think, and this is just me, this is not science at all, I do think you could probably push the bounds on that just a little bit. So one I did find a little bit of information on is that tomatoes were planted at 20 centimeters spacing, and the typical producer spacing is 30 centimeters. Now, what I read in this was that there was somewhere around like a 35% increase in marketable fruit from the plants that were planted at the 20 centimeter mark. So they're not butted up against each other, but they are pushing the bounds on what the industry recommends for spacing, and we saw a benefit to it. So if you noticed issues with your maximalism gardening, I have in the past, and I still do it all the time. I need to stop again, like I said. But if you experience issues, then maybe back off on the spacing that you're going for. If you're like, listen, I'm not seeing much disease, I'm not seeing massive amounts of pests, I'm not seeing competition for resources or leggy plants or lack of flowering, keep doing what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. You know your garden better than I do. Keep on keeping on.
This also isn't science-based, but this is just like how my brain works. So the packaging says, say, 30 centimeters distance between tomato plants. It's in the interest of the nursery, the seed company, whoever it is, to try to get you to fit as much as possible into your garden, because then you buy more of whatever their product is. So, I mean, them even saying like 30 centimeters, I always think to myself, well, are they pushing the bounds of what the spacing should be? Because again, their best interest is for you to buy more. And so they probably want to push things as close together as possible. So I don't know. It's like one of those things. Do what you want. Do what you want.
Anyways, next one, chaos gardening. Now, this is one that I saw, and again, I definitely do, but what I will say is chaos gardening for beginners needs to stay in 2024, because what this is, if you do not know, is simply taking seeds. They can be of the same variety and they can be of different varieties. So if, for example, you have a mixed lettuce bag and you can just like sprinkle them all over, you don't put them in rows, you don't space them out, you just literally sprinkle them all over the surface. Wildflower seeds or just flower seeds in general, you maybe mix a whole bunch of varieties together, kind of sprinkle them all over the place. Root crops, you have carrots and turnips and beets, maybe all in just a pile, and you literally scatter them everywhere. The reason why I say this needs to stay in 2024 for a beginner gardener, or for someone who just has limited time on their side, is because it is really difficult to weed and to care for. So I did this year with some of my crops and I regretted it. Now, the ones I didn't regret this with were carrots and lettuce in particular. Carrots, I found I had to thin a lot less this year because I just chaos gardened them. And lettuce, I mean, it's just lettuce. Spinach would fall into the same category, arugulas, you name it. The ones where I regret it are anything that had a little bit more structure to it. So the reason for that is because, same as maximalism, if we don't remove weeds, the weeds will compete for resources, because they are a plant too. Everyone has equal opportunity to resources for sunlight, you name it.
Okay, who had on the bingo card for 2024 that plants have a better socioeconomic and political system than human beings? Sharing is caring, folks, unless of course you live in Saskatchewan where syphilis is on the rise. I found that out when I went to give blood the other day.
So this competition is not always so friendly, and weeds are literally, because they are more aggressive at consuming those resources, that's why they're weeds, because they take over. They're much more durable, if you will, compared to cash crops. Let's just say it's very hard. It's very hard. Not only is it hard in the sense when they're like in the cotyledon stage or just like seedling stage to determine what is what, you then have to let them grow up in that space. And once they grow up, you can start to kind of see the differences. And then you're plucking out, and you can't use like a tool to just rip out the seeds. You have to like separately go and find each one to weed it out. And yeah, rows are much simpler. Rows, it's in a row. You can see all the leaves that look very similar to each other. Anything that doesn't look like what's in the row, even if it is in the row and it looks like, you can leave it for a period of time and just weed out the sides. It's very quick to weed things in rows. You literally just take a spoon, whatever you want, just toss up the sides of it. Row gardening, there's a reason why cultivators and air drills and farmers in general use rows over just broadcasting, which is actually a way of seeding, is broadcasting. It's like a big cone with like a spinner on it, and it just like literally chaos gardens on a mass scale. Not a popular form of growing food. Air drills and stuff seem to be the way to go, and the reason I think is because of just that one factor on its own. Now, it can pose other issues, but if you're not experienced or you don't have the time to sit there and pick out individual weeds, yeah, chaos gardening can stay in 2024. My last one, and this is maybe just me, could be just me, this weird dynamic in the world of gardening that I sometimes see. It can be on social media, it can be like in-person events. I just see like this elitism vibe at times, where one person's always right, the other person's always wrong. The people who are wrong, you know, you make fun of them, you call them dum-dums. Just leave it. Leave it in 2024, please, for the love of God. It does not matter. You are gardening. You are gardening on a home scale, and it does not matter. We can all be nice to each other.
Both science, actually, technically, when you challenge a mainstream thought, when you're not dogmatic, when you continue to learn and read and shift your opinions over time based on your readings, that is something called scientific rigor. Now, some scientists do not like people with scientific rigor, and some scientists like people with scientific rigor. I am a rigor supporter, if you will. I do think science needs to progress forward. We need to look at new ideas. We need to look at different concepts, different ideas. It doesn't matter how crazy they are. Aristotle was a nutbag. Didn't they want to like put him in jail or something crazy? Like, that's an example of if we would have pushed the limits at the time, we would have been better off. Or even, could you imagine if medical science said, you know what, bloodletting, we're sticking here, we're not going past bloodletting. That's clearly the only option. Like, that's dumb. That's dumb to me. So, when you use something crazy and it works, fucking do it. Use it. Ignore everybody else.
That is one that I hope stays in 2024. I personally very, very deeply believe this. Be your own garden scientist. 100%. If you want to try something, try it. If I say compost tea, I said, not my favorite form of fertilizer. Not saying it doesn't fertilize or it doesn't increase microbe activity. I did allude to the fact that it does do that, but it's just not, I think, in my humble opinion, I think it's just too much time and effort for what you get out of it. In my, again, humble opinion. However, some of you were like, no, it works for me, I love it, and you need to just keep doing it. And I think the Geek Crew understands that, but if you're new to the Geek Crew and you don't understand that, there's no wrong way to garden. If you want to till. If you don't want to till, don't till. If you want to fertilize with conventional fertilizers, fine. If you want to use weed, pesticide, herbicide, I forget how to speak sometimes when I get fired up. The red hair just like blocks out my brain blood flow. Again, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And be nice to each other. Just be nice to each other. Let's have fun. Let's have fun. Okay, that's my 4 2024 trends that can stay. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.